This episode of A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live is brought to you in part by Viewfinder's Identity Search and Design. Your choice for web design, graphic design, and all multimedia development needs. Visit VFISAD.com and let us bring your vision to reality.
Hey there, this is Kyle Hebert, the voice of Ryu from Street Fighter V. Rise up. The answer lies in the heart of battle. You're listening to A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live. Hadouken!
It's time. Talk time. Let's go. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Live. Started in the 80s with Matt Cross. Dudes in the hood might have called that soft, but I carried that cross like Jesus did. Fast forward, I teach the kids to learn how to let go, live life, and show love to all things that don't matter where y'all from. And luckily, there's a show called Talk Time. We've been waiting for this for a long time. Dax kicks the facts on all the geek news, special guests and unbiased reviews. Suburban kids, the hipster street dudes, all can learn something new. Me too. I heard words when no faith is empty. I stayed the course so my haters tempt me. Beat the podcast, that'll make them envy. It ain't too trendy, it's A.C.M.G. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Live.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is ACMG Presents Talk Time Live, the Prime Show. I am your host, Xavier Josiah. Folks, we are days away from the premiere of Spider-Man Far From Home, and in honor of that, we are going to cover the top 5 films out of the 10 films that we saw Spider-Man in. So that's not just the actual Spider-Man films, that is also films that he was a part of. So we're going to rank all that down. I'm going to give you my top 5 along with the top 5 based upon the ACMG Facebook group and see what they voted and see where we contrast and compare to. So we're going to talk about that. This is a very Spider-Man episode. I'm going to love this because I love Spider-Man. It's the reason why I get through everything, with great power comes yada, 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 and all that jazz. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to have some bit of news to talk about this week. It's not too much going on. It's the 4th of July week coming, not the weekend. It's all falling upon the week. So there's not too much news going on, but there is stuff to talk about and some important stuff to talk about, as well as some fun stuff to talk about. So without further ado, folks, let's not waste any time. Let's find out what's new in the world of ACMG.
And now, it's time to find out what's new in the world of ACMG.
All right, folks, to start this off, I do want to make an apology and a correction based on some pronunciation that I did on our last podcast at the Select Start when I was talking about the unfortunate death of YouTuber Etika, which I pronounce Atika. Now, granted, that's not the most important thing about the situation by far, but I want to be able to, because truth be told, I've never really heard of the person until this came about, and some people that I know, or rather friends with him, or known him, or just really close to this guy, or were fans of this person. And either way, regardless whether he's a influencer or a celebrity or not, he's still a human being, and it's somebody who passed away due to circumstances that didn't have to be. And it's just a shame from a standpoint that we still have not figured out how to help each other in a sense, and we're still closing ourselves from the world, from other people, from each other, in a system that is meant to reach out to be more social. Social media is so screwed up right now. It's so screwed up right now. Like, it has to be about more than just about getting likes. It has to be more than just getting follows. The whole point of social media and its core, when it first started off, was so that people can socialize and, be able to meet new people and do really cool things. And then it became this popularity contest, when celebrities got into it. And it became something totally different. It gave people a chance to want to be a celebrity in itself. But the defect of that is that it also, from a psychological standpoint, I guess, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist of any kind, but I can guarantee, from a mental and ideological type of sense, it really changed the way everything was and how we thought, how we are judged, how we, it's getting out of hand. And we need to utilize social media to truly bond with everybody. I gotta tell you, I've met a lot of great people from social media, whether it's just, people I've met online to actual people I never thought I would ever had the opportunity to meet and be, let alone befriend. And either way, it's just a way of socializing, communicating, being a part of something special. And this is why we have what I'm now calling Operation Offline. Myself, a few other A.C.M.G members, we're now pressing hard to make sure that we're not only communicating online, that we're also communicating offline. We're doing gatherings now. Shout out to my A.C.M.G member and good friend, Kiana Map Dunn. She stuck her neck out. And I'm saying stuck her neck out because she's never done anything like this before. She wanted to do something to reach out to other people, to meet with other people. And what we did was, she came up with the game night situation, in accordance to what I already do with the movie night situation, just to try to get people to come out and meet with each other, because the context of social media is so far off. And once you meet somebody, it's a whole new different thing. And it's been proven. Last Friday we went and we checked out this, board game, cafe. Shout out to the Thirsty Dice. This was a phenomenal place in Philadelphia. I highly recommend it to anybody. These guys were top notch, great restaurant, great place where you can play board games. They got over hundreds of different games to play, but you're doing it together. And we did it with people who we'd never met before. Some people I knew from the A.C.M.G group, but some other people I didn't know and I met for the first time. And it was just awesome. We had a great time. And it really, from a mental standpoint, it felt great because we are part of a group. We're interacting in the real world. We took the red pill and decided to, do something different. It's amazing how it's now a form of bravery to go out and socialize with people. That to me is amazing. But what that can do for you is just it mentally helps you better. And I feel like before the internet really got the way it was, people handled things differently. They weren't as depressed, because of the interaction, the social interaction in the real world was there. Now it's not. We're isolating ourselves even more and more, I feel. And we just need to bond better. We need to make sure that people like Etika and people that I know aren't suffering from isolation and depression and stuff like that. We need to let them know that, reach out to us at all costs. I have friends who are far, from not just in my city. I also have friends that are out of the state and out of this country. And I just want to make sure to let everybody know that there's always a way to reach out. Don't ever feel like that you're afraid not to. And, just we can, there's more to life than just social media and talking about anime, comics, movies, and games on social media. We can also, hook up outside of this realm as well. So please try to reach out to everybody as much as possible. The world isn't as bad as it claims to be. It just, with everything going on, we just need to change the way we react and interact with people in this world. Saving people like Etika, saving people like the people I knew. I just spoke to a friend of mine just recently, just literally before this show started, about how he's been feeling really down and depressed lately because he feels isolated. He's keeping himself from, everybody. And unfortunately, this man's a father. And that worries me. And he's not from this country either. That's the other thing. He claims that he has been diagnosed and stuff like that. But we have to find a way to really, it's not easy. I've been through this when I was in high school, where I felt like I was the only one in the world, but I had to fight myself out of it. This is before people were diagnosing these symptoms or anything like that. And I'm not saying I'm anywhere near suffering from depression or anything, but you don't have to be diagnosed to feel sad. You don't have to be diagnosed to feel depressed at times, but there's a severity and a level of depression out there now that people are, medical facilities and such like that are looking into. But we didn't have that in the 90s and all this stuff. I literally had to really fight hard for my life and understand my worth and value. That might not work for everybody, but it's something that always you need to consider. But also, just try to reach out to people and try to make your voice heard as much as possible. It's a lot of work. It's not just one step. It's not going to be 2 steps or whatever, but we need to find more ways, come together, talk, find more ways to get together and enjoy all the fruits of this life. And some of the fruits of this life is friendship, is love, it's family, and of course it is all things anime, comics, movies, and games. But at the end of the day, it's no point of loving all this if we can't have anybody to love it with. So with that said, again, people, if you know someone who is suffering from feelings of depression or suicidal tendencies and don't have a trusted family or friend to rely on, please be a hero and reach out to them. But if you're that person, please call the National Suicide Prevention Helpline at 1-800-273-8255. Let me give you that number again, 1-800-273-8255. So please give that a call as much as possible. They're there for you. They're looking to help. They're trying to find ways to help everybody as much as possible. And 2020 is coming. Let's rid of all negativity once and for all and start to bring the tip of the scale to positivity. That is all I'm going to say about that. And it needed to be said. I know this is a format for fandom-based entertainment, but there's some really important things in life that needs to be stressed out. And I'm taking this time from our forum to do that. So if you're listening to this, definitely listen to everything that I said. And if you're part of the A.C.M.G Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/A.C.M.G1, you want to talk to me? I'm there. So let's move on to some more lighter news here. The AEW FYTER FEST was live last night. I got a chance to see it. If you guys know, if you're a wrestling fan, the AEW FYTER Fest, first of all, it was a spoof off of the Fyre Fest, and it was on BET, it was, which is Being the Elite, the YouTube show. It was a really cool comical thing. On the pre-show, it wasn't so much, but that's here nor there. The show was to, promote their wrestling brand to a gaming community audience who are also possibly more than likely wrestling fans. And at the CEO tournament, fighting game tournament, which is said to have been very successful. I watched the entire show. It was absolutely awesome. But the most significant thing about last night was that, one, thank goodness that the goofy skits were only for the pre-show and not for the main show. And the main show was all mostly wrestling related. But the main event of the night, not the unsanctioned match after it, but the main event of the night was the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega versus the Lucha Brothers and Laredo Kid. The great part about this match and why I mentioned this whole entire thing was not only because this was at a gaming tournament, but also that the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega came out to the biggest fanfare you could ever come out to, and that is them coming out wearing gear dedicated and tributed and paying homage to Street Fighter. Matt Jackson, I believe, I could be wrong in this, Matt Jackson wore Ken, Nick Jackson wore Ryu, or was it Matt Jackson? What the Young Bucks wore Ken and Ryu. But it was even more furthermore that the lights came off and Kenny Omega bust out looking like Akuma with the Tengoku sign and all. It was awesome. It was a phenomenal match. These guys did tremendous, but there was a really great moment in the match where the Lucha Brothers and the Laredo Kid actually did one synchronized move, and they went to the ropes, and then all of a sudden the Elite, which is Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, actually countered that with an Hadouken attack, which led to the crowd eating it all up. They were going crazy for that. It was awesome. And shout out to Kyle Habert, the voice of Ryu. He's been on the show. I know he saw that. And the first thing I thought about when I saw that, I'm like, I bet you he was watching, because he's a wrestling fan too. If you guys heard the previous interviews I had with him, we talked wrestling for a bit. And he's a big fan, and he saw that, and immediately he got a screen cap and put it on his website. He like, yep, that happened. So that was great. That was absolutely great. And he also got to meet Xavier Woods recently too, which I'm like, I thought he would have probably met him by now. But it was pretty awesome. Great night. These guys know exactly who they're catering to and the actual target audience that they're catering to. Kenny Omega's a big gamer and like a pro gamer at that. You can almost, you can pretty much give him pro gamer status with fighting games. So, I mean, it was great. They absolutely loved it. It was a great deal overall. And I'm looking forward to the fall because they got a lot to go on from there. So, moving on to some other news. Melissa McCarthy is in talks to playing Ursula in the live-action Little Mermaid movie from Disney. I'm actually all for this. I think she is. I love her, Mike O'Malley. I loved her and everything she's been in. She's great. She is. I don't think she gets enough credit. She could play. She's kind of like the equivalent of. This could be controversial for me saying this to some extent, but she has that Robin Williams, John Lithgow type of ability to do comedic roles and do serious roles. I'm not saying that she's at the level, but she's able to do that because not many people can do a serious role that she's done. She is Oscar nominated, not just one time or two times, but like she's really great. So I think she can really knock it out of the park with Ursula. I think she's perfect for it. And I am looking forward to that as well. I think she'll do a great job. I'm also looking forward to The Lion King coming up on July 19th as well. We are just knocking at the door. Now, you know what else comes out on July 19th? Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. You ain't telling me nothing. I can't wait to that game. I am going to be so on that damn game. Hard. Like, I'm celebrating that game big. Like, hugely big. You watch. If you're in the A.C.M.G Facebook group, look out. It's coming. So I am looking forward to that movie coming out. Like, Disney has been... People were skeptical about the Disney live-action movies at first, but they are really doing a Marvel job, no pun, of doing these films and coming up with these films. It's in the same way that Marvel studios are doing it. It's like, you have these great beloved animated movies and you're bringing them to life in the same, almost in the same fashion as what Marvel Studios doing. And it makes sense because they're all connected together anyway. So, why not do is just as good and give that Marvel quality to Disney for their movies? And they've done really good. And everybody said Aladdin was actually pretty damn good. All things considered with Will Smith and everything. So I heard way more positive than negative about that movie. So we'll see. I would love to see Melissa McCarthy. To me, I don't think she could do any wrong. I think in about a couple more years, a few more years, she will be regarded as one of the greats of this time, of this generation, because of what she's the movies, the quality of movies, and the caliber of movies that she's been doing. And truth be told, and screw everybody for this, I actually like Ghostbusters. So sorry, not sorry. Take it or leave it. I never saw a problem with that movie. It's like the first one wasn't an Oscar-winning movie in the first place. Like, why are we beefing about this? This movie was just as comical. So I thought they always got the bad run with that deal. And everybody always said that was a bad movie. A lot of people said it was a bad movie, but they never articulated as to why it was actually a bad movie. So I can't tell you what the hell is going on with people's mind. They just people just want to vent and displace anger sometime. What can you say? So I believe this is this is the last bit of news I got. Like I said, this is a really short episode this week. I mean, I guess because of the holiday season, there's not a lot of news coming out, but I did watch the recent episode of Dragon Ball Super. Of course, they're finally covering the Tournament of Power in English. So all the English dub characters are there. Again, shout out to Kyle Haybear, who is, of course, Gohan on that as well. And it is every bit as awesome. But if you guys recall, last time I spoke about that show, they actually, Toonami, Cartoon Network, they actually did a few episodes where they were actually editing the frames, the actual, frames of the episode because of people that were getting seizures and epilepsy or whatnot, because of the color and lighting and stuff like that. And they wanted to try to help make sure that happens. So what they did was that they kind of, slowed down the fighting, the episodes where some of the fighting was. And I know that they did because I watched it again on DVR when I saw it. And then recently, I just, it's on some of those episodes are now on Funimation uncut. And I saw that episode and I'm like, oh yeah, they absolutely did it because the pacing of the fighting is much faster. It's like rapid speed at this point. And I looked at them like, why did they just slow that down and not everything else? Like they didn't do really anything, in my opinion, to really doing it, slow it down or, dim the lighting and coloring up that will probably trigger somebody with the symptoms. So I guess they gave up on that point and just decided to put a disclaimer on the TV, as when commercials when it airs back on, saying that this show produces a lot of lighting and a lot of situations that may cause seizures, so just be aware. So I'm really glad that they did that. It's a very responsible thing to do. I would love for them to be able to do it in a way that it wouldn't affect those that does have those triggers, but not without taking out the integrity of the show. So, and unfortunately, I guess they couldn't do it without, diluting the actual series for the essence of what the series is about. And they just decided to put that up. And I do feel bad for those who do get triggered by that. It's a shame. Hopefully they'll find a way. Maybe there's a way to change. I really don't know. Maybe there's a way to, turn down the tint on your TV when watching it or something like that. I don't know what it's going to take to, be able to have everybody enjoy that show. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So they're just putting up a disclaimer right now. But I thought that was very interesting that they did that. And I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully someday we'll be able to find a way to make sure that everybody can enjoy stuff like that, because the Tournament of Power is just ridiculously great. I enjoy the Tournament of Power way more than I enjoy WWE, which I have not watched in ages. And their storytelling is much better, too. So, folks, that will do it for this edition of What's New in the World of A.C.M.G. We're going to take a break, come back, and talk the top 5 ranked Spider-Man movies. We'll do that right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dak Xavier Josiah, the host of A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live, the podcast. You want to catch up with all of our podcast shows and hear from some of the hottest names in all of anime, comics, movies, and games, such as...
This is Miley Flanagan, the voice of Naruto.
This is Stephanie Shea, the voice of Sailor Moon.
This is Ruben Langdon, voice of Ken Masters and Dante from Devil May Cry.
Hey there, this is Kyle Hebert, the voice of Ryu from Street Fighter V.
This is Chris Battle, character designer of Teen Titans Go.
Here's your chance to check out all of that and more on TalkTimeLive.com. TalkTimeLive.com provides all of our ACMG content with new and previous episodes, exclusive interviews, articles, and much more. Visit TalkTimeLive.com and let us help you learn to let go, live life, and love all things ACMG.
Talk Time Live.
Hi guys, this is Ruben Langdon. You're listening to ACMG Presents Talk Time Live. Shoryuken!
Do it.
And now it's time for our talk topic of the week. Ready? Fight!
All right, folks, we are back with our talk topic of the week, and it is my top 5 Spider-Man movies. And not just the Spider-Man movies that are just based on Spider-Man, but all of the movies that had Spider-Man in them. That's also the MCU movies as well. The overall count of that is about 10 movies spanning from 2002 to now. So we decided to add those in because many feel that some of the movies that only had his appearance on there was actually better than some of the original movies that were made. So I decided to add that on. I remember even Kevin Smith, for instance, when Captain America Civil War came out, and they premiered Spider-Man, and it was like the 17-minute, 52-second battle that they did, and just introducing Spider-Man into the world of the MCU. He felt that was the best Spider-Man movie that he's ever seen up to the point. That was before Homecoming came in and all that stuff. So I decided to add those all in and see where they rank within all. Not only did I do so, but our A.C.M.G. Facebook group did so as well. And if you want to be a part of the A.C.M.G. Facebook group and socialize with some great people who loves all things anime, comics, movies, and games just like we do, go to facebook.com/groups/ACMG1, and you absolutely must have a legit, real profile with you interacting from 5 years or beyond. And that's the only way you're going to get in. If you don't answer all of the questions that are in there, if you don't agree to the terms, you will not be on. I do not play around with that. I want to make sure everybody's safe. There is no trolling. There is no solicitations or any of that stuff. We don't even allow promotions if people aren't socializing. That's how strict we are, because it's social media. We're supposed to socialize. And even from a business standpoint, you're supposed to be socializing and networking around anyway. That's how you do business, people. But I digress. Our people, our great people in the ACMG Facebook group also voted on. So I'm going to give mine. We're going to give theirs. We're going to compare and contrast and see where we go from there. So let's get it started. Number 5, I gave it to the original Spider-Man, the 2002 Spider-Man, Sam Raimi. Brilliant. And when I say brilliant, so brilliant that we probably wouldn't have been at this stage of comic book movies had he, along with X-Men and also Blade, have not done what they've done. But it was at the time of Sam Raimi when he came out with Spider-Man, it really set the tone. I mean, Blade started a revolution of saying, we can make something of this. We can no longer be afraid to do comic book movies the way they should be done. And we have the technology to do it. We also had the technology to create the Bionic Man as well. So with that said, they decided to go at it, and they made the X-Men shortly after, which was critically acclaimed at the time. And then shortly after, Spider-Man came, and it was all of our dreams coming true. As a comic book fan, as a Spider-Man fan, I teared up for the first time seeing him come to life, and it was just, now it's just normal. Now in 2019 is normal. In 2002, we never seen anything like this, and actually we did, but it was crap because it was the old Spider-Man series, live action series from that time then. And if anybody ever tape traded back then, you also saw the actual Japanese Super Sentai Spider-Man as well. But it wasn't until this movie that was done so right that there was so much fanfare that it really felt like the comic book coming to life, from panels to splash pages, everything just coming to life. This movie really set the tone for everything from there, and it made so much money when it came out. It's unbelievable. So that is going to be my first. I mean, you had Tobey Maguire, who really did a great job of playing a very comic worthy and accurate Peter Parker at the time. You know, he and not just any Peter Parker. I thought he always portrayed a very good Earth 616 Peter Parker, and that's a difference. For those who are not familiar with that term, Earth 616 is the primary Marvel universe. Before all of these new versions came out, the Earth 616 is the primary version of Marvel Comics. It's before any new reboots or any of that stuff changed, any alternate universe like Spider-Man 2099s and the Ultimate Spider-Man universe and such. Before all of that came by, it was Earth 616. So he played a great Spider-Man Earth 616. And that has to be importantly said, because moving on to all these other movies that we're going to talk about, they actually were different versions of Peter Parker based on different versions of the comic series that you're referring to. There were some, references of, maybe Ultimate Spider-Mans and stuff like that. So we got to make sure we address that as possible. So the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, which is absolutely awesome. William Dafoe was fantastic. And still to this day, absolutely Shakespearean with his role as Norman Osborn. I mean, my favorite absolutely, without a doubt, whenever I think of Spider-Man, I think of the scene where William Dafoe is looking at that mirror and he's talking to himself, and they got the cameras panning back and forth as if he's really talking to somebody else, but it's actually him. I was like, dude, I can watch him in a live theater do this, and it'll be awesome. He is so phenomenal. That's why he is a legend. William Dafoe is a legend in this business, and that's because of stuff like that. I mean, he was absolutely fantastic. And, you know, he just, if anything I was ever to say I would change, I wish that they would have not mech his Green Goblin suit, but it wasn't a big throwaway. It didn't really hurt anybody. But in a sense, it was just like, okay, they feel that they have to go that route, but it's fine because the rest of the movie, the Raimi suit, you know, Spider-Man suit and everything is all legendary and beloved. And the movie was great. You know, everybody, Kirsten Dunst is, you know, as Mary Jane. Still, actually, probably the best Mary Jane of them all at this point, because she actually is Mary Jane, you know, at this point. So, and James Franco was like, his career would not have skyrocketed off had he not played Harry Osborn. I mean, say what you will, that's where he got famous from. The same way Hugh Jackman got famous off of Wolverine, James Franco got huge because of his role of Harry Osborn. So this really elevated a lot of things to come in the world, in the industry, like just people's career, the industry in itself, the franchises of comic book movies. You know, it helped elevate that. I always give the analogy of the Sugar Hill Gang and Run DMC, because when the Sugar Hill Gang came out, they were the first of the first of the first. That's what everybody considers. They were the first ones to be in the spotlight of hip hop. But it wasn't until Run DMC came out that it became a commercial success, a crossover commercial success. That's kind of what Spider-Man did here. You know, Blade is the Sugar Hill Gang. You can't ever deny he is the nucleus of a new generation of comic book movies, of successful comic book movies. He's not the first comic book movie, but he's the first of a new line of successful comic book movies that revitalized the industry to what we have now. That will never be forgotten. But Spider-Man, because of what the character is, who he is, and how much of a risk it was, because if they got that wrong, people would have, even before the internet and the term trolling came about, people would have been like crazy, like shit-faced upset about the whole entire thing. So with that said, that goes into the 5. Why isn't it in number 1? Because unfortunately, there are successors since that time, since 2002. Absolutely, Captain America Civil War, for instance, which I had a hard time, you know, going back and forth with this, and I'll tell you why. I really had a bad, you know, back and forth time of saying, was this better than the original Spider-Man? For me, it was, and again, take notice of what I just said. For me, it was, because this is my top 5, not your top 5. So this for me was because, one, I absolutely love the Ultimate Spider-Man series, and I thought Tom Holland played a extraordinary Peter Parker, a fantastic new Ultimate Universe. If you guys have not read the original Ultimate Spider-Man series that Mark Bagley did, and I forgot who wrote it, but like I don't know if he might have written it too, but the Mark Bagley Ultimate Spider-Man series, the story in that is so strong. It is like for the first few hundred episodes leading up to when Peter Parker dies in there, and this is like a teenage Peter Parker. This is where Tom Holland's character is derived from. It plays up, and he did the same thing that, you know, Tobey Maguire did, but I almost think that he's a lot more likable. He brought a lot more personality to it because this is a modern version of Peter Parker. And that doesn't take away anything from Tobey Maguire, because Tobey Maguire played, like I said, the 616 version that dates back to 1963. And it was the most appropriate. The whole entire, you know, movie of the original Spider-Man from Sam Raimi was referenced from the old school, you know, 1963 Amazing Fantasy style deal. And he did it tremendously well. But Captain America Civil War, the Russos, they really did a great job introducing us into this new version of Spidey, this new approachable Spidey, this one that we can really relate to. And that was very important because what makes Spider-Man one of the most successful characters in the world and in history is that he's the everyman. And you have to make sure that you get that element of Peter Parker in there. Peter Parker is the everyman. Not only did they do that, but he's in high school, and he's a kid in high school in this new day and age of diversity and such, and he is crushing on this black girl on this movie. In fact, if I'm correct, Zendaya as well, who ends up being MJ in the show, and they're both women of color. So I really appreciated that. Because if you guys remember, even in the comics, the original 616 Peter Parker, he was about every man. There's even a few comics where he's fighting for our culture. He's fighting, he's siding with our culture, and he's totally not, I think he was arguing with somebody that apparently was racist, and he was basically I forgot what book that was or whatever. I got to find it, but he was against anybody who was, anti-black or anti-anything or just racist, period. And he addressed that strongly in that book. Again, at a time where racism the volume was high as hell in racism at the time. So that, it's one of those things that I really enjoyed, and they're continuing to put that in to this, and it worked, and nobody had any problems with the fact that he wanted to date her, and it just happens to be Adrian Toombs' daughter, which also I loved as well, because he was married to Francie, French, what's the name from the Jamie Foxx show? I forgot her name, but it was a lot of diversity in this still, and it just made him even more lovable as a character. Plus, he knows how to really pull off emotions very well. I don't understand. I mean, like in Infinity War, when he died, and I just literally watched it. Yes, I watched all the movies leading up to this episode this week. That death scene is probably the most imprinted scene of all of the scenes in Infinity War, because he nails that scene. I don't want to die in the most innocent and heartbreaking way you could possibly do it. It's amazing. Tom Holland, at this time, he has the title of the best Spider-Man and the best Peter Parker right now, bar none. But that's why I gave Captain America Civil War, because it was a great introduction to him. The fight scene was phenomenal, and they got everything right about Spider-Man, how strong he is, how he's able to, even though he's a kid, he has this ability to be able to rival any of the other Avengers in there. So he played himself right in there, and he was very smart. He thought, he used critical thinking. He thought his way through. He troubleshot, some things like how to take down Ant-Man or Giant Man at the time. So, or Scott Lang for that matter. So I really enjoyed his introduction here. So that one I slid right into number 4, but it was by a hair, at least, to the original Spider-Man. Number 3 for me is going to be Spider-Man 2, Doc Ock. God, I swear to goodness, if there was no other Spider-Man movie out after, before 3, this would have been the greatest Spider-Man movie of all time. This is still one of my all-time favorite Spider-Mans. Again, because they, Sam Raimi captured the original Earth 616 universe and the original 1963 universe and brought it to life. He also brought we haven't seen a Doc Ock since. Not since Into the Spider-Verse, but there hasn't been another male Doc Ock since that's live action that has come out here. And this portrayal of Doc Ock was absolutely on point. I guess, you know what? I could give another nod to another great Doc Ock, and that's from the Spider-Man PS4 game that recently came out last year. That is the other one. If you want to, count that as a movie, then yes, that was another great Doc Ock. But from a movie standpoint, this was absolutely great. And then the fight scene alone, everything that I loved about a Doc Ock versus Spider-Man fight scene, it was flawless. It was absolutely flawless in this movie. Everything about it. It was great. I loved it. I love everything that Peter was going through. in here as well, so they never stirred away from the Peter Parker side of the movie as well. It was well balanced. It was one of my favorites of all time. Still is one of my favorites of all time if you want to count best comic of all time, comic book movies of all time. Like Spider-Man 2 still strong, and I watched that a while back. It still holds up. Even Spider-Man 1 still holds up to this day. So I absolutely love that. Number 2. I think number 2 and number 1 is just, you don't need a crystal ball to predict the obvious, but what the hell. Spider-Man, actually, you may. Spider-Man Homecoming was my number 2. And that is because we not only got Tom Holland in a full-blown movie, but it was a full-blown movie that was done right. It was in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Again, they kind of paid homage to the original Raimi Spider-Man. Instead of having, Doc Ock. I mean, not Doc Ock. See, I'm still thinking about that. Even though they didn't have Norman Osborn. And when they started talking about Homecoming coming out, everybody was hoping that it would not be Norman Osborn again, because we saw so many Norman Osborn things. Remember, the Amazing Spider-Man movies came out and they rehashed the whole entire thing over again for some reason, Sony. And we didn't we got enough of the great power quote, and we got enough of the Norman Osborn rivalry. So for now, at least. But it's not to say that we want to not see him anymore, but they haven't really established the world enough to say that we want to see him again and just reboot it all over again. So just wait years for that one. But with that said, Homecoming continue the storyline and story development and the character development of Peter Parker from Civil War, and we got to see so much more of Peter Parker. We got so much more of his friends and his world going on, and great side characters. The one thing I loved about the Amazing Spider-Man, or I'm sorry, not the Amazing Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, was that they focus way more. Well, not even way more, because you had Mary Jane and you had Gwen Stacy and you had Harry Osborn in the original, but there was a lot more. I felt like there was a lot more development in side characters in there, and they did the same thing for here. He had a bunch of friends in this movie that, like Ned. Ned was. I don't care what the hell they say about that. The character of Ned looks extremely like Genki in Ultimate Spider-Man, Miles Morales' friend. It's just uncanny. It's just really uncanny that he looks exactly the same. But Ned has been in there, and then you got now MJ, who Zendaya plays, and their version of Flash Thompson is very interesting. You would think, as comic book fans, and in all the years that we've known about Flash, especially with what ends up happening to Flash Thompson later on in the Marvel comic universe, that we would see this newly rehashed, diverse version of Flash Thompson. I believe he's Indian descent in this movie, which was really interesting. And I don't know how they were able to pull off the fact that we were okay with this kid playing Flash Thompson. He was still he's not as much of a bully as the original Flash Thompson it was in the other movies, but he did pretty well. He did pretty damn well in here, and he people love him. He's more like a millennial version of Flash, and I think that's what they were going for, because millennial Flash is he doesn't really aggressively physically bully you. He bullies you mentally, antagonizes you, if you will. So that's how he does it. Then he gets his comeuppance every single time, some way. And I can't wait to see Far From Home, because if you saw clips of that, he's gonna be in for a number. I'm gonna love this. So, but some of the essence of Flash is still on there too. For instance, he actually still is a big fan of Spider-Man, and that's always been the case of Flash Thompson. He's he hates Peter Parker, but he loves Spider-Man, and they're the same person. So that element is still there. But the fact that they were able to, do that, and Zendaya to some extent too, because Zendaya is not the original MJ is not a woman of color. Zendaya's character, who is not named Mary Jane, by the way, and I don't know how the hell they get from, I forgot the original name that she was, to MJ. So that's a whole entire thing, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it'll answer that question on the second movie as well. But guys, have you seen the recent? I don't follow Zendaya, but I did see an article. I don't know if it was GameStop or IGN, where she actually changed her hair color and straightened her hair in honor of the new Spider-Man movie and made it red. She does look like a MJ-ish type of character in this, and I wish they would have added that to the movie to some extent, but I didn't understand that they were hiding the fact that she was MJ in the movie just for, I guess shits and giggles or whatever. But I whatever they did right, and people loved it, and it's become a lot of people's first or second favorite Spider-Man movie of all time. It's definitely mine. I love the new suit. I love the fact that it is based on Civil War, kind of, and this is Tony Stark giving him his suit, and that answers the question as to why he has all this technology. And now that Tony's gone, and we're going to see how this stuff, heads on for the aftermath of Endgame and such. So this is going to be really interesting to see what happens there. But Homecoming was such a great movie. It was great comedy, a lot of connections to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as always, and this is going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. But Homecoming was definitely my number 2. Number freaking 1. Again, we do not need a crystal ball to predict the obvious. And again, this is one of those situations where I felt like this is going to be etchy because Homecoming was so great. But this movie was a huge love letter to Spider-Man fans and just art in general and animation in general. And you can't deny it's the only Spider-Man movie that has an Oscar, and that is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Not even Peter Parker. It was Miles Morales, the same Miles Morales that a lot of trolls, that a lot of haters was hating on, that Michael Bendis actually created, that Sarah Pacelli actually beautifully, brilliantly drew. A lot of people were hating on this character. What's up, Danger? He got an Oscar. What? And not only that, you had this, with the fact that this was such an extraordinary artistic work of art, a masterpiece, if you will. This absolutely a masterpiece. When you get to Oscar, you're a masterpiece. What made this so great is that it paid so much homage to the artist. There was slots of Eric Larson in there. John Romita Jr.'s art style was in here too. I mean, man, it was unbelievable. Kingpin, I forgot the original artwork, the art style that they based him on. Just so great. Just a homage, a love letter to every single fan who's ever read a Spider-Man comic book for years, followed by the fact that a new kid is in town, and that is Miles Morales. And not only that, the soundtrack was absolutely awesome. You can't even say that about all the other movies that came out. All the other movies had like 1 or 2 songs that were great from their soundtrack. Like the original Spider-Man, I believe Nickelback did Hero, which is still to this day awesome to me. Who else? The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which had Electro in there from Jamie Foxx. The Electro orchestrated theme music, theatrical theme music is actually awesome as well. But when you have an entire soundtrack, and it's been a while since movies had actual soundtracks. Like back in the 90s, we used to have movies that would have actual, original soundtracks with some of the today's hottest artists in here. I could give a big example of this. New Jack City, still to this day, one of the greatest movie soundtracks of all time. The Boomerang soundtrack by L.A. and Babyface had, various artists in there as well. One of the greatest damn soundtracks of all time. I'll give another nod to Babyface as well. He did the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack as well. Mo Money. I mean, you name it. They was just a ton of different soundtracks. Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society. They was just rolling back in the 90s. We haven't had anything like this since. And I mean, since that and Black Panther soundtrack, which was also fantastic. And here we actually had this, and it was phenomenal. Everything about this movie was phenomenal. They had a lot of homage to New York and Biggie and, hip hop in general. And whoever was the DJ that was putting all these mixes together was awesome in the movie. I mean, you heard Black Sheep in the damn movie. Come on. An Oscar-winning movie that has both Biggie blaring and Black Sheep. I don't want to hear it no more. So it was just awesome. And then you have Mahershala Ali, who played the Prowler. Just so many people. The guy who played Peter Parker was my man from New Girl, who at first I was really skeptical about. I love him on New Girl. I love him in other things. And I just didn't know if he was going to be able to pull up like Peter Parker, but the version that they portrayed was perfect. It made sense. It made absolute great sense to it. And he gelled really well. Everything about that movie really well. But now we got a new cat in town. This movie solidified Miles Morales more than anything else. I mean, you could see like in the comics, he was becoming a main character to a lot of situations. If you read Civil War 2, he was a main factor, a huge factor in that storyline, which was great when you put it all together in order. And it was absolutely fantastic. But man, absolutely, he is set in stone now. You can't say anything about him. In fact, he was a known character in the Spider-Man PS4 movie. The game actually. And then also, he's going to be a main character, a focus character in the roster for Marvel Ultimate Alliance coming in just a few days. Cannot wait. Absolutely cannot wait for that. So, folks, I'm telling you, it was undeniable. You just can't. Just the way that they did things. It was just, and again, it looked like a comic book in motion. That was the other great part too. I love Homecoming. You can't, if you focus on just live action movies, Homecoming is number one. But Spider-Man movies in general, you gotta get at to Into the Spider-Verse. I'm interested in seeing what this sequel is going to look like. I kind of feel like this needs to be a one and done thing, but if they're going to keep doing it, Sony Animation, this is where your niche is. Do not mess with the live action stuff. Let Marvel Studios continue with Spider-Man. I got a feeling this is going to be the last movie we're going to see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with him, which is going to be sad, and I hope that's not the case. I hope they figure out, because they're getting paid regardless. So we'll see. But let's see what our A.C.M.G. Facebook group has in this. So I gave all 10 of this list of things, and they voted. And it's funny. There's a funny thing about this list, too. So, of course, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 3, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, Captain America Civil War, Spider-Man, the original, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Into the Spider-Verse, to which the voting, if you want to vote to the top 5 of the 10 that they gave, very similar to mine, with the exception of Captain America Civil War was placed under the 5th slot. Spider-Man Raimi was put in the 4th, Spider-Man 2, 3rd, Spider-Man Homecoming, 2nd, and of course overwhelmingly, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is number 1. So what was not voted on, I must add, was The Amazing Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 3. Respectfully so. Now, take note, I felt The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was watchable at best. The Amazing Spider-Man 3 I had conflicting situations with, but I've watched it multiple times. There's nothing else that needs to be said about that movie. The Amazing Spider-Man, I was not too much of a fan of. More than anything, because of the damn suit that looked like it was made of material from a Spalding basketball. But other than that, Andrew Garfield also was a throw off to me as well. Granted, when he was with Emma Stone, their chemistry was awesome. I love the Gwen and Peter chemistry, but this emo version of Peter Parker was disturbing to me. I just felt like he just didn't feel like Peter at all. If you compare him to Tom Holland or Tobey Maguire, no, he was nowhere near to that level of a Peter Parker. But when he was Spider-Man, he was pretty good. So it was pretty much what it was with that. And then you had you had the Lizard, which was actually really okay. You had, for Amazing Spider-Man 2, you had Jamie Foxx. He would have been much better had he not been kind of a kind of a rehashed version of a Superman Donner style character, because that's what he felt like. He felt kind of, his portrayal reminded me of like the Donner Superman movies. It was kind of outdated. I would have loved to have a more sophisticated version of him, like his whole entire look. And it takes nothing away from Jamie Foxx's portrayal of it. It was just the character direction of it, in my opinion. So that I didn't really feel that too much. Sally Field was a great anime too in there. There were some elements that were good, but overall, in comparison to the rest, it wasn't bad. So like they didn't get any votes, unfortunately, from that point. Even Infinity and even Endgame, which really didn't have Peter on there that much, except for the final battle, which I forgot how long that battle was and the end of that was, but yeah, that was even considered better to people than that. And speaking of that, my honorable mentions would be Infinity War and Endgame, because you got to see a lot of character development within Peter within those movies too. But overall, the other movies were the top 5 were all of ours at that best. So I would love to know what you guys think and what was your actual best and why. So if you're on the A.C.M.G Facebook group, definitely check it out. If you're on my Instagram page, definitely chime out there too. You know I don't get a lot of talk out of that one, but they get a lot of likes from the artwork and everything on there as well. And we get a lot of listeners from that as well. So I do appreciate all of it. Folks, that will do it for this edition of ACMG Presents Talk Time Live. I hope you guys enjoyed it always, and definitely check us out. We will be reviewing Spider-Man Far From Home next week, as it is going to be premiering during the week, early during the week. So that's not weird at all, but it was whatever. I will be joining a bunch of my ACMG Facebook group as we're going to the Movie Tavern in Flowertown this week to check it out, enjoy yourselves, have some great food, and chill on some of the best reclining chairs that I ever have outside of mine and in my house, and just have a great time as always. Again, people, I say it again, please do your best to be as friendly as possible, to reach out to people, to be a real friend, because sometimes, this, as corny as this might sound, to be a real friend is to be a hero too. You know, part of being a hero is being a friend, and being a friend, a real friend who's absolutely there for people. You know, not just for the benefit of them or whatever like that, to really be there during their darkest times. Especially people that you know that are excelling in things, and you know, sometimes they don't excel all the time. Sometimes they need help to boost up. That's a real friend, you know, because it really helps out. It really helps them in their mental state. It really helps them out and so much more. So just be there, and just let's make a change leading into 2020, because we definitely desperately need it. So, folks, thank you again. If you want to check us out in all of our episodes, our past episodes, our great interviews with some of the best in all things anime, comics, movies, and games, go to TalkTimeLive.com. Check out our exclusive page on TalkTimeLive.com/exclusive, or you can just tap on the button and on the website, and you will see a list of all of our, but I would say about all of our, some of our favorite interviews. I still got to put on the Flanagan, the recent Flanagan interview. I don't know why I'm stalling on that. It's such a great interview. But, you know, from last year, we're just about to celebrate the year of that interview too. So I definitely got to put it up. So yeah, definitely go out of your way to check that out as well. And keep sticking with us on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play, Podbean, and so much more. We're going to be doing a lot. There's going to be some great news coming very soon, as I mentioned before. It's about to heat up in the summer in the best way, and I don't want to say I can't wait. I hate saying I can't wait, but I'm looking very forward to it as well. So, folks, that will do it for this episode. On behalf of myself, this is Dak Xavier Josiah saying, learn to let go, live life, and love all things anime, comics, movies, and games. This is ACMG Presents Talk Time Live. I am out of here, folks. Have a great and absolutely safe 4th of July celebrated week. Take care. Music for this episode is provided by Game Chops. Check out these great chiptune tracks and more at music.gamechops.com.